Hello, and welcome to another edition of Long Beach Treasures. I'm your host, Harvey Keller. Today we're going to be revisiting the Bembridge house. We visited it once in the year 2000, and many changes have been made, and so we're back to see what changes they've made. And joining me is Ira Schutz, and she's going to talk about the house and take us on a tour. Iris, welcome.
Thank you very much, Harvey. Well, we are very happy with the work that has been done on the house. We've had it repainted recently. We have a new roof. We have foundation has been stabilized, and now we have heat in the house. So we're very pleased with all of the changes that have taken place.
I noticed the emblem up on the peak was not painted. Is that any reason?
That is going to be a really expensive thing to have done, and we haven't found the right person to do it. I mean, it's going to be many thousands of dollars. Everything else was done, but that one thing, it requires a new cast, a new plaster cast for that, and we haven't found the person to do it yet.
This looks so clean and neat in comparison to, you know, it's the same color, but it just stands out so much more now.
Yes, we're so proud of how the house looks. And many of the neighbors coming by here too comment, and I'm always happy to talk to anyone who walks by, and I think that we have more respect for the house from the people in the neighborhood now that it's looking so much nicer.
And the front door has been refinished?
Yes, that was a gift from one of our members, and that was done, one of the first things that was done, and that makes the house look so much nicer.
Let's go on up, and this was built in when?
1906. We just had our 100th anniversary last year.
And it's a Queen Anne Victorian.
Yes, it is. And some of the things you look for in that is the wraparound porch that you see here. And somewhere, up at the very top of the, can you see way up at the top at the, where we're going to have the new plaster, there's fish scale
oh, yes.
siding up in there. That's rather unusual. And then we also have siding along the ship side siding that is along the rest of the house, as you can see.
The narrow wooden boards.
The narrow wooden panel, yes.
Let's go on up and see. This was originally built by Stephen and Josephine Green, I believe?
Yes, that's true, it was.
He was a banker?
Yes, he was, and he built it and only lived here for 6 years before he died. But he was, and his wife lived here for another year, and then the house was sitting on the market for about 6 more years until in 1919, the Rankins bought the house, and they had admired the house previously, had come and, as a matter of fact, not only admired it so much, they built a house in the same style back in Cambridge, Nebraska. Yes, in their hometown, before they moved out here permanently, and they built a home in the very same style because they admired this house so much.
Well, let's go on in. Everything looks so different, so new and so clean, and
I know.
It's what a difference that a few years make. All right, let's go see what it looks like inside.
Very good. Well, this is one of the most elegant foyers in this area. We have quite a large room here to enter. We have the coffered ceiling up above, and the staircase that you see looks like mahogany, but it's actually a soft wood, and all through are carvings that are Grecian carvings. We have several that are, you'll see in
egg and dart.
Egg and dart, yes, and then we have a rope here, and we have, most importantly, we have here dental. And you see the dental around the ceiling as well, and that's another feature that you see in the Victorian homes.
That's a neat light on the newel post.
Well, that is actually part of the original house, and it was here from the very beginning, and it's beautiful, we think.
The leaded glass is original also?
Yes, it is. The leaded glass in the you mean over here?
Yes.
Yes, the leaded glass all through the house. There's various that are Tiffany style leaded glass, and we also have several places where you will see another feature of the Victorian style is the ionic columns that we have along in here. Again, it looks as though it's mahogany, but it's actually a soft wood. Hasn't really had very much care over the 100 years that the house has been here, and yet it still looks beautiful. We have a couple of features in the house that are not the features of the house, but of the family that eventually bought it, the Rankin family. And this clock that we see, this grandfather clock in the corner, was a wedding present for Mr. and Mrs. Rankin. Those are the parents of Mrs. Bembridge, and the house is named for her. And that was actually also back from the original time of the house, which was 1906, because that's when her parents were married. Here's a picture of the people who were responsible for building the house.
Stephen and Josephine Green?
Stephen and Josephine Green, yes. They were quite well-known people in the Long Beach area, and as you said, he was a banker, and was really well along in life when they built this house, and so he only died 6 years after they moved in.
I understand that when they owned the house, Dame Nellie Melba was here, the
yes.
Opera star from Australia?
Yes, she was, and she stayed in the master bedroom, which we will see in a little while. It's a very large master bedroom. I think that you'll find it beautiful.
Let's go on.
All right. This is the first parlor, and we have some guests here that are enjoying some of the things that are really recently done improvement. One of the things is we have the sofa that has been in this house for some years, and our two of our guests are enjoying the sofa. And that sofa, we didn't know that it was really the original sofa that Mr. and Mrs. Rankin, Dorothy Bembridge's parents, had purchased and brought to the house, until we recently had it uncovered and recovered, and we found the original channel upholstering style that is on the back of the sofa. So we had it redone with a fabric that was very similar to the original fabric, and we are thrilled that we've had this recently done.
The piano also is original to the house, is it not?
Yes, it is.
They bought that on their honeymoon?
Yes, they did. We have a letter that was sent from England by Mr. and Mrs. Rankin, and telling the family that they had bought this piano and had it sent back right after they were married. This is a Steinway, and the other piano in here is also a Steinway. That was bought at a later time in the 1920s. We think it was restored in the 1920s. Frequently, Mrs. Rankin and Dorothy Bembridge would play together because they were both expert pianists. We have another thing that has been recently recovered, a lovely settee set, which is in the foyer, and this rocker, which was done with the money was from one of our members who recently passed on, and part of her legacy to us was to have this recovered for us to enjoy with the new covers that are much more beautiful than the original. So, well, it's actually similar to the original. It's much more beautiful than what was covered over, which was not as pretty as this is.
And I noticed you have these beautiful pocket doors.
Yes, we do, and they still work. Many of them are still working, and these have been closed off totally. These two that you're looking at right here have been totally closed off. Some of them don't work as well as others, but after 100 years, I think we're very lucky to have any of them working.
Do you have to treat the wood?
No, we don't do anything to the wood. We just wipe it off, and we don't put any oil on it or treat it at all. Once, maybe very rarely we would, but we've been told not to do anything to the wood. We've been told to leave it the way it is and not put any kind of special oil, because that would really reduce the life of the finish.
Hey, if it's lasted 100 years, why knock success?
Exactly. Another thing you might be interested in is the feature. I notice you're looking at the feature along the walls here. These walls, we think, are the original covering on the walls. They're not wallpaper. Some people think it is, but it's actually a type of paint that is different colors that are sort of patted on, sponged on, and it was very stylish back in 1906, and has come back in style after all these years. But we are quite certain that this is the original finish on the walls.
And this
is the
second parlor?
The second parlor also could be called the library. We have some books in here. We have beautiful tile with Roman goddesses, I guess you would call them, or ladies, lovely ladies on the fireplace. And again, we have the egg and dart on the wood molding, and we have the ionic columns. The picture on the fireplace over here is a picture of Mrs. Bembridge's family when they were back in Cambridge, Nebraska, her father and mother. At this picture, she was quite a little girl. She was probably about 7 or 8. She was 10 when they moved here, and so it was before they moved here.
She taught at Jordan High School, did she not?
Yes, she did. She taught at several high schools in Long Beach, and Jordan was one of them. She taught music, of course, and she was an excellent pianist.
And this is the dining room?
The dining room has a couple of interesting features. One of the most interesting, which we like to talk to people about, and you seldom see them, is this a chandelier. It's actually called a gasolier, because when this house was built, we always think, well, we've had electricity for a long time. Well, we have, but Originally, in 1906, electricity wasn't always turned on. It wasn't turned on all day long. So sometimes if the electricity wasn't turned on and you wanted to have some light, you would have to have the gas lights. The gas has been disconnected since then, but we still have the fixtures, and we now just use, of course, the electrical.
The ceiling in this room is one of my absolute favorites.
Yes, another coffered ceiling, which is beautiful. And I like the one in the entryway. We also have another interesting feature that was an innovation that was created by Mrs. Bembridge's mother. When she came here, the glass case for the china case was closed in the back with wood, and her mother said, "Well, we need more light in this room," so she opened it up and put a window in behind, so now you can bring light into the room, and it shows off her silver china and glassware and the various things that she had in her collection. And of course, we still, on the other side, each side of the case, we have
original leaded glass windows.
The beautiful leaded glass windows. Yes, they're lovely.
Now, the breakfast room here, this
well, the
was
breakfast
an
room,
add-on?
yes, the breakfast room was added on in 1926. As I said, Mrs. Bembridge's parents bought the house in 1919 and decided to add on to it. We originally had the porch that went all the way around the house, and they cut off part of the porch, and this window that you see, the bay window in the dinette area, probably was part of this dining room. And the whole thing was moved out and made into a dinette area. As you notice, the light fixture is different because by the time we came to 1924, we no longer needed gas lights, so they had electric only. And this dinette area is next to a kitchen that was also added on in 1926. And the kitchen was quite small for a house this size.
It is.
Yes, well, that's because Mrs. Bembridge's mother was not much of a cook. She didn't like to cook. Mrs. Bembridge didn't also like to cook. And they were musicians, and they didn't need a large kitchen.
I think they once said that we're musicians, not cooks, so we don't need a big kitchen.
That's what she said to her second husband when she married, and she was by this time in her mid-40s, and she said, "I will give you Beethoven and Brahms, but you have to do all the cooking." And we have a 1926 kitchen here with marble, how much they used it, I don't know, but a marble pastry roller place. And we have one thing very interesting here, I think you might like to see. We have a garbage disposal, 1926 garbage disposal. This little thing opens up. There's a garbage can outside.
And it doesn't require power.
It doesn't require
or a
power.
switch.
Yes. Yes.
All right, let's keep going.
All right.
This is really small for this size of a house.
Yes, it is. It's a tiny room. For
beautiful glass doors.
Yes, it's amazing to me what was done by the people who did the restoration in 1926. Originally, the wall ended here, so they put these doors in. They put, I don't know where they got this was probably like the house was maybe 20 years old, and they put paneling in. It matches exactly the next room, as though it was made at the same time. But it was 20 years later that they
Must
did
have been a master craftsman.
It had to have been, yes.
Now we're going into what was the original kitchen?
Yes, if you go in and notice in the original kitchen, up on the wall, you see the two vents for the stove that was originally in the kitchen. This kitchen has now been turned into an office for us. We use it, we have a computer in here, we have a table in the center that we use for meetings, and some of the original furniture is in here. Actually, it was originally turned into a bedroom, and it was to be used by Mrs. Bembridge's grandfather for a while, and then in the end, during the last years of her life, because she was almost 90 when she died, was not able to really get upstairs very well, so this was her bedroom as well. Now we're using it as an office, and we probably continue to do it that way.
There's a downstairs bathroom there. That's
There is,
four bathrooms in the house?
There are 4 bathrooms in the house. If you'd like to look at the original pull chain toilet, you may. We're using a storage area here. We have a lot of things in this bathroom, but the original pull chain toilet is quite nice because it's not working now, but you can see what it looked like back in the 1906 when they had this back bathroom.
4 baths in a house was quite progressive, wasn't it?
This was a very magnificent house. This was one of the, actually, we've been told it was probably the most magnificent house in this area in Long Beach when it was built. And we're very happy that Mrs. Bembridge was so adamant about having it destroyed, because they were going to tear this house down when they enlarged the park next door. The Drake Park was right next door to us, but Mrs. Bembridge was not going to allow that to happen.
Shall we go on upstairs?
Yes. We have 2 ways to go upstairs. If you can see the back staircase here, we're not going to take that. We're going to go up the more beautiful staircase. This was probably when the Greens had the house. They had, very likely they had a servant, Mr. and Mrs. Green, and they had 4 bedrooms upstairs. Very likely they had a servant. We don't know the details, but the staircase comes back down here directly to the kitchen, which used to be the kitchen here. So we feel that this was a servant in the house, and this would have been the way to get to the kitchen.
How many rooms do you have here?
Altogether, the house has 18 rooms.
And this is another bath?
Another bathroom. Let me turn the light on. This is probably the bathroom Mrs. Bembridge used in the last years of her life, because it is, well, it's working, functioning now, and it still works, and we use it. It's very old, as you can see from the fixtures. Hasn't changed at all in 100 years.
Large, high ceilings, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They're
Except in the bathroom.
Yeah, well, this bathroom is actually built under the staircase.
Right.
And there is something I need to talk about as we go up the front staircase, too, regarding the ceilings and the bathrooms, and I think that you would find it interesting. There are 2 landings. The first landing on the main staircase, this one, as I've spoken to you about, has the stained glass windows and the ionic columns next to this mirror. And then as we go up the stairs, we come to a second landing with a little sitting area, and I'll turn this light on so that you can see. This is something new that we've had done.
Oh, the light didn't used to work.
No, we didn't used to have a light here. We had an electrician come and do a few things for us, and this is one of the things that he did, was to wire this light, so that now we have a nice little sitting area that you could actually use with a light here, and a little settee. And I want you to turn around and look over here at this floor that is coming out, and you see that there isn't anything holding this room up. This cantilevered floor, and it's hard to imagine what room could be above this floor. You would think, well, it's probably a very light room, something that wouldn't take a lot of stress, and you wouldn't worry about it. But when we go upstairs, you'll see that's not the case.
This is a beautiful staircase.
It is beautiful.
I wish we still had workmanship like this in this day and age.
Oh, yes. Well, it's a lost art. Now, we'll go into the main bedroom, which is very large.
Oh, bright in here, too.
And since we've just been talking about it, I'd like you to turn your attention to the room that was cantilevered.
The bathroom.
Of all rooms, and that's why if you looked at the ceiling a little closely in the foyer, you saw that there was a little bit of leakage, because we had the bathroom above it, and there had been a little leakage, and it had gone through and caused some chipping of the paint. But obviously when the tub is filled, this is a very heavy room.
I can't imagine the weight with that tub full of water in the body.
And yet it has held up for 100 years, and you'd think it would not hold, but in the attic there are some angled beams and iron bars that are holding this room up, and they've held it for 100 years.
And this little room?
Another little room off of the main bedroom is the sewing room. We have a sewing machine that we think belonged to Mrs. Bembridge's grandmother. She did quite a bit of beautiful sewing. We have some examples of her work around the house. The bedspread is probably hers,
Now,
which we'll look at a little bit.
The sleeping porch was enclosed at the same time they built the kitchen?
Yes, it was. The sleeping porch, I think probably we've talked to some people about maybe opening again and have been discouraged, because I believe probably what happens, we get some pretty heavy winds here sometime, and I would imagine that it probably became not very comfortable for them to have it open as they did. So we've left it, and we will leave it closed.
And this is Mrs.
This is
Rankin's
the main
handiwork?
We think, well, not Mrs. Rankin, Mrs. Taylor, Mrs. Bembridge's grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we think. I mean, we really don't know, but we think that it is. We think it's very lovely. It's the typical 1920s style. We have a mannequin here with a dress on because we're planning on having a Christmas celebration early in December, and our period is going to be the 1940s. So we have our mannequin dressed in a beautiful gown from the 1940s period, and we'll have that shown at that time.
When is your Christmas program going
It'll
to be?
be December the 1st.
Second.
Second, so I'm sorry, second, December the 2nd, Sunday, yes.
Cost?
I think they were going to charge, I'm not sure, I believe it's $20.
They can always call to find out
Yes,
more
call Long
information.
Beach Heritage, absolutely, yes.
And this is another bedroom?
Yes, it is, and we have another sliding door, and this one again works. You can pull it aside and show it. It was very common at the time this house was built to have two bedrooms next to one another. One of them might have been Mrs. Green's room, and the other one was Mr. Green's room. But probably when we think, and certainly we're showing it this way, that this would have been Mrs. Bembridge's room when she was a little girl. And we have some of the things that she saved, which we have a lot of children come through and have tours through here, and the children are entranced by this little dollhouse that we have, and the set of dishes that was given to Mrs. Bembridge when she was 10 years old by an aunt. She has an inscription on the bottom of the box that this was a present to her when she was 10.
So I noticed there's a sink in here. Is that
Oh,
a very
yes.
Victorian
Well,
idea?
well, we have the master bedroom has a master bath, but the two other bedrooms in this beyond, with the other one behind here and this one, both have sinks, so they can they can wash up. This one has a mirror over it and a light, which the back bedroom does not have. And this is a place where you can get cleaned up, but then if you needed to use the rest of the bathroom, take a bath, use the bathroom, then you could go down the hall because we have another bathroom on this floor. We have two on the first floor, two on the second floor.
Let's keep going. Now the wood is different up here than it is down below.
Oh,
It's
thank
much
you.
lighter.
Well, thank you for helping me to remember that, Harvey, because I was going to mention that to you. The interesting thing about the wood in this house is that it is the same wood downstairs as it is upstairs, but the stain is different. And another thing, normally when you would have people go up to the second floor, you wouldn't have the details. But look, you still see the details. You see the egg and dart around the top of the doorways, and you have the same kind of beautiful detailing upstairs as you had downstairs.
But it's not as exquisite up here
No,
as
it's
it is
not
downstairs.
as much as downstairs, but you still have it. Another thing that is very, I believe you were looking at it already.
The transoms?
The transoms over each of the doors. We have it all, each of the bedroom doors has the transom that allows air circulation, so you could open the windows and have air circulation. It wouldn't be too warm. We don't have air conditioning in this house. We do have heat.
We've only got 5 minutes, so I want to hurry through because
All right.
I want to go out and see the carriage house too. Now-
Well, the back bedroom is the bedroom that we call Neil's bedroom. It has many of Neil's things in here. It has the iron bed that he originally had, and two of our members were responsible for redoing this quilt. This quilt had been in shreds, and I was thinking of throwing it away, which was a horrible idea. One of my members looked at this, and she put it together, reconstructed the quilt, and now we have it sitting on the bed, so we're very pleased with it. We have Neil's accordion. He played the accordion and was quite accomplished. And
With the UCLA marching band?
yes, he also went to USC. He went to both colleges, USC and UCLA, and that's why we have his UCLA drum major hat.
And this is another one of the bathrooms up
Yes,
there?
the last of the 4 bathrooms upstairs here. Oops, there we go. And this last room up here is the room that was used by Mrs. Bembridge's father, Mr. Rankin, as an office. And we have his old typewriter and adding machine, which still has the glass leaded,
Beveled?
beveled, thank you, beveled glass inside here, and the the machines that he had. And we have one piece of clothing here that was not Mr. Rankin's. It says Charlie Bembridge on it. It belonged to Mrs. Bembridge's husband, Charles Bembridge. And it was because...
Someone must have been in the Masons.
Yes, he was in the Masons, and the
Fez?
The Fez that we have, the one that is the more recent Fez, which I should show you, is El Bacal. This was the Fez that they had when they were in the Los Angeles group. But the Long Beach people had their own, and it was L for long, L, B for beach, Cal, Long Beach, California.
Huh.
Yes.
Creative little devils, weren't they?
Yes, they still have it. The El Bacal is still here in Long Beach, yes.
Well, let's run down and check out the carriage house.
Very good.
Now this little garden here, this is something new?
Yes, we're very pleased. It was offered to us this last summer from Leadership Long Beach. It was one of their projects that they wanted to do something beautiful for the community, so they put this a garden that will not need too much water.
Maintenance-free,
Maintenance-free garden. It has
drought-resistant.
It has needed some water to get it started, but it should really go without much water after it's established. And this garden has been something that we're really beautiful. We're very happy to have it.
I have to mention also the driveway.
Yes.
What an improvement.
Oh, this was very unsafe. We've had people walking along the driveway. There were major holes in it. And now we have this lovely, smooth driveway that leads up to our reconstructed carriage house, which is ramrod straight, you might notice. It was leaning badly before.
Let's point out the aviary here as we go.
Yes, that was recently redone, and the person who was responsible for doing that work was one of our neighbors, Richard Fair.
He's done so much work here.
He's always been very much appreciated by Mrs. Bembridge. He helped her a lot when she was alive.
When I was involved here, I used to call Richard all the time,
yes.
And he was always Johnny on the spot.
Yes, he always has been, yes.
And the carriage house does look so much better.
We're so pleased with the work that was done. The fact that it's straight now, and the fact that we now have back the original carriage house door. And that door is the original door that was on the back. There was one on the back and one on the front, because when you put a horse through the carriage, you couldn't get him turned around inside, so you'd have to have him go in one side and go out the other side. The back side now is a reconstruction of this door. This door was actually taken down when cars started to be used, and it was used as a garage, but no longer. We now have it as a carriage house, back the way it was.
You're going to build in a...
Yes, if you look over there, sort of an ugly spot there now, we have plans to have a new building put in there. It will be a bathroom and a storage room, and it will be accessible for people that are disabled.
Now, we only have a short time. Give me hours of operations if somebody wants to see the house. Is it accessible?
We have established the hours every Tuesday afternoon. We are here, and we'll open it up for anybody who comes by. But also we have, I think it's the third Saturday every month. They need to call and make reservations to make sure that we have staff here that will handle it. But that is our 2 times that we have it open, and it'll be all day Saturday.
And then you have special events every now and then.
Yes, we do. A couple of times a year, 2 or 3 times a year.
Is this, could somebody rent the house if they wanted for a function?
We haven't established anything like that at this time.
Iris, thank you. You did an outstanding job, as always.
Thank you, Harvey.
And I just am so amazed at the amount of work that you guys have done since I was here in 2000.
Yes, we are too. We're very thrilled with it.
Dorothy must be happy as a lark up in heaven.
Well, we feel that she would be. I think she loved children, and I think she would really love the children's shows that we put on here, and we have them. And when school gets going, we're going to have quite a few children's programs coming through here, and that will be wonderful.
Okay, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Harvey.
And that's our show for this time. Be sure and join us next time as we take another walk through history and uncover more Long Beach treasures.